Welcome to the Economy Magazine. I'm Binyamin Tjong-Alvares with the top economic reports. On today's show, Gaza startup develops apps for foreign clients, and dogs and drones team up against deadly fungus. First, the headlines. The US dollar rallied on Tuesday as a pending Greek default pressured the euro, and the yen plunged to 7-year lows. The euro slipped 0.7% in morning trade to 1.089 a dollar as investors swarmed to the greenback following Friday's CPI report for April. But uncertainty regarding Greece's ability to pay back debt in June also weighed down the euro relative to the dollar. The dollar also rose 1% to the yen, leaving it on course for its weakest close since the summer of 2007. China and Chile are clearing a path for the use of the Chinese yuan in South America as they seek to strengthen their trade relationship. A currency swap agreement will facilitate the exchange of a maximum of $3.6 billion for 3 years. Chile's top trade partner, China, accounts for about 24% of the nation's exports, including mostly copper, but also wood pulp, wine, salmon, and other products. But Chinese investment to date has been considerably lower than in other Latin American countries, and Chile hopes to particularly encourage investment in the energy sector.
We are even more pleased with the continuous advancement of our relations between China and Chile, and we are proud of all these successes, our bilateral ties.
As Muhammadu Buhari formally takes over as Nigeria's president this week, Africa's largest economy is reeling from a cash crunch and a crippling strike over fuel. The economy is virtually grounded with no electricity, no fuel, and $60 billion in national debt, government spokesman Lai Mohammed said. Chronic fuel shortages in Africa's top oil exporter have severely disrupted telecommunications, banking, and aviation. Planes were grounded so fuel could be used to power the private generators that produce most of the country's electricity. Africa's biggest crude producer subsidizes gasoline heavily and depends on imports for the bulk of its domestic fuel due to inadequate refineries.
This is the right opportunity to take out the subsidies, put the matter to rest, and take out the subsidy system that actually creates this absurdity, this fraud, because these guys are blackmailing the country as a whole.
Samsung Group moved closer toward new leadership with plans for an $8.1 billion merger, placing the chairman's son in a stronger position in the conglomerate. In an all-stock deal, Samsung's de facto holding company, Cheil Industries, will take over construction and engineering company, Samsung C&T. The key part of the merger and eventual ownership transition revolves around Samsung Electronics, which the Lee family controls through stakes in affiliates. Control is maintained through a complex network of cross-shareholdings between the 74 businesses of the group and strategically placed direct family holdings. Though Gaza's situation remains tense, some entrepreneurs have found a way around the political deadlock. I-24 News journalist Daniel Roth brings us the following story of a small firm that develops applications for clients in the Middle East and Europe.
In Gaza, amid the destroyed infrastructure, a startup called Unit 1 has been an outsourcing firm in developing mobile and web applications for clients in Europe and the Middle East. The firm got its start 10 years ago when 2 software engineers got together in a tiny room to begin their work. For the founders, it is not only an opportunity to code.
With the work that we do, we are able to open a gap in the blockade imposed on the Gaza Strip and to export and offer our services to the world. We have people who are competent and who have expertise to develop these services in the field of information technology.
The company has 89 employees, and in the last recruitment push, they had 400 applicants for 10 positions. Not surprising given Gaza's unemployment rate sits at over 40%. Nearly 130 businesses and workshops were destroyed last summer, according to the Palestinian Federation of Industry, and L'Enclave faced a 15% decline in GDP in 2014. And Unit 1, amid this situation, has held up a socially responsible hiring standard that is focused on hiring women thus far.
Jobs are limited in the Gaza Strip because of the political and economic situation. There aren't many employment opportunities, but Unit 1 has provided jobs for a large number of girls.
Now the company will begin focusing its efforts on hiring those with disabilities. This is important given last summer's conflict saw 10,000 Palestinians injured and more than 2,000 killed. Indeed, the company aims to provide a sense of freedom amid few options.
We don't have natural resources, and all the crossings are closed. Even before the crossings were closed, we didn't have a good economy and no factories. So technology is our only way of opening up to the rest of the world.
Unit 1 deals with power outages on a regular basis, and so has invested in backup generators. The relatively young and globally minded project may serve as a model of things to come, but it is hard to tell as economics and conflict remain unstable for the 1.8 million Palestinians in the Gaza Strip.
We stay on the topic of Gaza as a World Bank report regarding the dangerous fiscal crisis there will be presented on Wednesday in Brussels. For more on the economic situation there, we're joined by Amir Rotem, the Director of Public Affairs at Gisha, an Israeli nonprofit focused on protecting the freedom of movement of Gaza residents. Mr. Rotem, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for inviting me.
So, just as an opener, I mean, I understand since the war between Israel and Hamas, there had been pledges made of $3.5 billion to Gaza to help relief in Gaza. But the majority of that has not actually been disbursed. Why is that?
Well, first of all, what the report says that $1 billion of it has been allocated, which is sort of good news. The problem with the money flowing in is because all kinds of terms the donating countries have. So most of them are legitimate, like political arrest, all kinds of resolved issues, which are still unresolved.
Right, which the political arrest side of it, I mean, related to another story, essentially. The report also said that the biggest issue there was really related to the fact that there was a constraint in terms of the inflow, so to speak, of construction materials, which then allows for infrastructure not to be rebuilt. Right. Of course, the Israeli government claims that the reason why it's not being let in is because they're afraid of the tunnels being rebuilt and they're afraid of these being used for weaponry. What is the solution here?
Well, there actually is sort of a solution on the ground, which is the GRM, the mechanism that is monitoring the incoming construction materials, which is a three-way system with the Israel and the Palestinian Authority and the UN monitoring the system. It's Israel's demand, but the others are cooperating with it. The problem with the mechanism is the fact that actually, to this time, not one new building has been, residential building has been built. Most of the materials that have come in, which is just about 18% of what is needed, has been used to repair only. And that is really leaving the situation on the ground very dire.
Why has it only been used for repair and not for building?
The mechanism hasn't reached that yet, and it's very onerous, the fact that you need to I won't go into all the details, but what you need to do is to bring all your quantitative figures beforehand. You need to be assured by Israel.
By whom? Where do these figures have to be sent?
Israel demands to assure every part, every building, its specific location, its height, every detail of the building itself. That is a very...
To ensure that the materials go to what they are meant for? Is that the concept behind it?
That's when it's assured. The first thing is to approve the fact that it will build there. They need to approve the plans, first of all, and then the quantitative mathematics of it, and, you know, the whole process needs to be monitored all the way.
Right. Now, you also mentioned the Palestinian Authority. To what extent is the Palestinian Authority a cooperative factor in this whole? I mean, does there need to be a unity government of sorts, or a unified authority between Hamas and the Palestinian Authority? And to what extent is that possible for there to be any change in Gaza?
Well, first of all, there is a government. It's still there.
Right, of course.
And the fact that the Palestinian Authority is cooperating with this mechanism is a good sign. There need to be a lot of other improvements. Part of it is Israel's consent to selling goods from Gaza in the West Bank and Israel, in order for the economy to grow. That's one of the things that Israel has declared it is in its interests, and international community as well. And that, I mean, construction materials is not all that the economy needs. It's the first basics of it,
Right.
but it needs to grow, and it can. We did this survey with all kinds of sectors that are growing in Gaza,
Right.
including the technology, and what they need is more movement of people and of goods, and that can be done.
Right. Okay, well, Amir Rotem from Gisha, thank you very much for joining us on Gaza and giving us more information on what is going on there. Thank you.
Thanks.
Dogs and drones have joined forces to fight a deadly fungus that has already killed thousands of avocado trees in Florida. Researchers hope that by combining drone surveillance with trained sniffing dogs, they can curb the fungus and prevent it from spreading to California and Mexico.
Juanbeda is having some fun on the field, but this game isn't just about fetching the toy.
Good girl, nice.
This dog is being trained to detect the deadly fungus that's threatening Florida's multi-million-dollar avocado industry. The culprit? A tiny invasive beetle that spreads the fungus to the crops. Once infected, most trees die within 6 weeks, a dim prognosis that has farmers fretting, and not only in Florida.
California, who has a huge avocado industry, about 10 times what in value of what Florida does, and Mexico, which is about 100 times what we have here, are extremely worried about this disease moving forward.
To stop the spread, scientists at a Miami university are running tests with a special task force that pairs dogs with drones.
The disease is very difficult to see until it's too late. The idea of disease dogs and drones is to take a couple different technologies and be able to find it earlier.
This drone is ready for takeoff. As it soars over the avocado groves, its high-tech imaging camera will help researchers narrow down potentially infected areas. Then come the dogs. By sniffing out the fungus-infected trees in their early stages, they enable farmers to act in time to avoid further damage to their grove.
You know, I view dogs as one of the more advanced technology we have in terms of a biosensor. And then with the latest use of drones, we're able to combine the best in terms of machines as well as biological detectors.
They may make an unlikely pair, but more battles could lie ahead for these two. Researchers are already looking at ways the disease-fighting duo could help with other crops.
And now for a look at some other stories and events from the world press in Media Watch with Daniel Roth. Daniel!
How's it going?
Good. What's going on?
Things are good, actually. Specifically
Really?
in France, things are good.
Do tell.
In my opinion, in this reporter's opinion. A couple of months ago, France just passed a law making it so that new buildings have to have green roofs, that is plants and food and greenery on roofs, or solar panels. So new roofs that are being put into the country of France will have to be green.
Fly over France, you'll see greenery.
Yes, and it helps with heating and air conditioning, saves on energy, solar panels, of course.
It's easy enough to do also, you know.
So this is part one. Part two is and just recently they passed a they passed a new law. This was spearheaded by a suburban city councilor who saw enormous amounts of food being wasted, 7.1 million tons to be exact. And decided to try to get a law passed that said supermarkets can't just toss out food when it's nearing its expiration date. So now supermarkets have to look for either charities or people to give it to. And this is, this has been a big problem, actually. One of the things we don't know.
This has been going on for years.
Yeah, I mean, since supermarkets have existed, since expiration dates have existed, food has been thrown out in a preemptive attempt. And in order for supermarkets to keep the sort of the prices up, because they throw out an enormous amount of food, 7.1 million tons in France, nearly 90 million tons in all of the EU. They make it inedible, so they pour bleach on it, they destroy it in some way to make it so people can't just go outside where they throw it out and take the food.
It's hard not to be cynical, when you think about this kind of waste of perfectly good food.
Right, and this is the big problem, that's the bottom line unless you come in and maybe regulate it. And that's the interesting and potentially big story here.
Yeah, what else do we have here on?
So the next one, Toronto, my hometown, a new and sad number. under 50% of Torontonians have full-time jobs. That is full-time. I have are over 50% of Torontonians are underemployed.
Right. Basically, are we saying that they don't have full-time jobs, that they're just, part-time here, part-time there,
yeah,
to make ends meet?
Lots of people are working more than enough hours.
Sure.
They're just making minimum wage.
Probably minimum benefits also.
Right, and in a lot of cases when you're working part-time, you don't get all the benefits.
Sure.
So this is actually something that's happening across the West. We talk about it a lot on this show, and it's one of the key reasons for growing inequality. It's this underemployment.
Right, well, we are underemployed too, right, Daniel?
Yes.
Thanks for joining us on the show. That concludes our Economy Magazine, your daily source for economic reports. At I-24 News, I'm Binyamin Tjong-Alvares, and thanks for joining us.